Stop. Can you hear that? That is the sound of the most advanced military technology of the 13th century, panicking. In 1241, the flower of European chivalry gathered here in Legnica. They brought unbreakable armor. They brought the Holy Cross. They brought 25,000 men. At dawn, they thought they were hunting barbarians. But by afternoon, just a few hours later, they wouldn't just be defeated, they would be harvested. To understand this disaster, you have to understand the arrogance of Europe. Duke Henry II of Silesia wasn't just building an army, he was building a wall. He gathered the ultimate hardware of the medieval world: Polish elites, Bavarian miners, and the special forces of Christendom, the Knights Templar. On paper, this force was unstoppable. A heavy cavalry charge was the nuclear weapon of the Middle Ages. Nothing could stand in its way. Or, so they thought. Facing them were two Mongol commanders, Baidar and Kadan. They were outnumbered, 2-1, but they didn't care about numbers, because they weren't here to fight a fair battle. They were here to execute a code written by Subutai himself. You see, Poland wasn't the prize. Poland was the distraction. Their true target lay to the south, Hungary. The battle began exactly how Duke Henry wanted. The European infantry charged, the Mongols engaged, and then they broke. They turned their horses around and ran. Panic? Cowardice? No. To the European eye, a retreating enemy means victory. The chase instinct kicked in. The miners broke formation. They screamed in triumph. But they were chasing a mirage. And then the trap snapped shut. The Mongols didn't need to stop their horses to kill. They initiated the Parthian shot. The European front line didn't just die, they evaporated. In less than 30 minutes, the 1st Division, nearly 4,000 men, were gone. Duke Henry watched his infantry disappear in minutes. He was shocked. But he wasn't finished. He played his final card: send in the knights. This was the moment Europe was waiting for. The heavy cavalry charge. Thousands of tons of steel and muscle slamming into the Mongol lines. But just as they made contact, the battlefield changed. Smoke. Thick, choking smoke rose from the reeds. The Mongols weren't just fighting with arrows, they were fighting with chemistry. The smoke wall separated the knights from their infantry support. The hardware was now blind. And then a voice screamed out of the darkness, in perfect Polish, "Byej! Byej! Run! Run!" Was it a Mongol spy? A captured soldier forced to scream? It doesn't matter. The result was chaos. The European reserves panicked and fled. Inside that smoke, Europe's most elite warriors, the Knights Templar, trained since childhood, their reputation legendary across Christendom, were alone. The Mongols realized their arrows bounced off the heavy European armor. A medieval knight in full armor weighed over 300 pounds, horse and rider combined. In that armor, a knight couldn't run, he couldn't swim, he couldn't even easily stand up once he'd fallen. So they updated their target. They didn't shoot the riders, they shot the horses. Then they waited for the turtles to crawl. It wasn't a battle, it was a liquidation. By evening, the silence was deafening. The Mongols didn't take prisoners, they took receipts. History tells us they filled 9 large sacks with human ears. 1 ear for every victim, 9 sacks. Duke Henry II was found days later, stripped naked, his head on a spear. His wife could only identify his body because of a genetic defect. He had 6 toes on his left foot. The path to the Atlantic Ocean was open, or so it seemed. But one king had watched what happened at Legnica. King Wenceslaus I of Bohemia refused to make Henry's mistake. When the Mongols turned north toward his kingdom, they found not panic, but an army of 50,000 waiting behind fortified walls. The Mongols turned away. And then, history changed. Europe was saved, not by steel, not by faith, but by one kingdom's willingness to learn from another's tragedy. But one question remained, haunting the survivors. How? How did a smaller army with no heavy armor delete the superpower of Europe? Was it magic? Or was it a superior science of war? In the next episode, we will deconstruct the physics, the tactics, and the genius behind the Mongol operating system. Subscribe and find out why the knight never stood a chance.